This is the Marvel Legends series, The Hand Ninja. The figure is part of the Stiltman Build-A-Figure wave, and here's the rest of the assortment. I picked it up at my local Toys R Us store for about $26. Let's get him out of packaging. And here is the Hand Ninja out of packaging, or should I say a bunch of Hand Ninjas out of packaging. And boy, do they look great. Definitely one of the best Marvel Legends figures for the year that Hasbro's ever come up with. You know, I mentioned in my haul videos that I wasn't originally interested with this figure, but because this character, this horde of ninjas constantly appear on the pages of the X-Men, Daredevil, Wolverine, I decided, it would be a fitting addition to my X-Men Marvel Legends collection, and sure enough, it did not disappoint. Now, a quick story about how I built this diorama, or this sort of posed situation with Wolverine and the Hand Ninjas. I was originally planning on having Wolverine on one side and all the 6 Hand Ninjas on one side, just flocking like locusts trying to attack him, like how it was in the comic books. And I'm sorry I don't have photos to show it, because I completely gotten rid of it because it didn't look great. It just did not look wonderful on the camera, and when you look at it, you get what kind of story you're telling, but it, in the comic books it'll look great, but on video and photos it just did not look great. And everybody was turned around, and they were facing Wolverine, but their backs were to the camera, and I didn't think it was great, because in theater, and I did a lot of theater when I was in high school, you're taught early on, you never turn your back on the audience. You have to always, face the audience in some way, like half, 3/4 or something, but you never turn your back away from the audience. And a lot of blocking here and there on stage. And so this is the scene I came up with, and I thought this came out a lot better. All the ninjas are like swarming at him, like piranhas circling around their prey, and I thought it came out great. And I'm gonna call it right now, this Hand Ninja is probably the best army building figure that Hasbro's ever come up with. It's just an amazing figure on its own, and when you build it, you build them all, you don't have to get like 100 of these. 5 or 6 figures is enough. You leave everything else to other collectors. You don't have to hoard everything, but getting more than 1 or 2 of this figure definitely pays off, because they look great as a unit, as a team, and it'll look great in a diorama with your X-Men or Daredevil figures. I actually think that these Hand Ninjas don't just work well with Marvel Legends figures. In fact, I think they're so good, so terrific, that they will work well as Red Ninjas for the G.I. Joe Classified series. I mean, I would rather buy a bunch of these Marvel Legends Hand Ninjas than pay those ridiculous prices that the Classified series Red Ninjas are going for. I mean, it's a store exclusive figure and limited quantities. Hasbro is like intentionally preventing collectors from purchasing a Red Ninja. So these guys look good in red. They're Red Ninjas per se. And come to think about it, some of the sculpt of these figures kind of reminds me of the 3.75-inch Red Ninjas that we've gotten in Retaliation, in G.I. Joe, old G.I. Joe figures. And I think they look great with his snake eyes. And if we do get a Storm Shadow in his classic costume, they look absolutely fantastic. And they are not only my ninjas for my X-Men shelf, they are going to be my ninjas for my G.I. Joe shelf. They are amazing. So let's take a closer look at the figure. Each of these Hand Ninja figures includes 2 pairs of hands, 2 gripping hands, and 2 open hands. It's a shame they didn't put a closed fist hand, but I'm just really glad they didn't put the karate chop iron fist hands. They really like this open hand, like a grabbing hand, much better than, say, a chopping hand. Now, the figure does contain both legs of the Stiltman Build-A-Figure, which I'm not really concerned about. I could care less about the Stiltman. And it's interesting, if you're trying to army build the Hand Ninja, you can actually get as much legs and extend the legs of the Stiltman as you please. Each figure includes a pair of these blades. They're called, I believe, kama. Okay, a kama is like about 11-12 inch stick that has like a cutting blade or reaping blade at the end of it, sometimes on both ends, but traditionally or most commonly just on one end. So a kama, as well as a sword, a katana. I actually like this sword. I'm glad they didn't just recycle any of Deadpool's katanas, and it fits nicely into the holster or scabbard. It doesn't bend the sword or anything like that. And what I do like about it, albeit it's made of this soft PVC material, it's not that super soft. It is kind of firm, especially here in the handle or in the hilt, but the blade a little bit softer than the handle, but firm enough so that it doesn't wobble. Let's talk about the head sculpt of the figure. This is, I think, one of the selling points of this figure, because that is how a hand ninja would look like in the comic books. Those dead eyes, green dead eyes. He's got a inner mask as well as this external piece, which is a hood. The hood, unfortunately, is not removable. You could, if you wanted to, force it out, but I can see on most of the figures, if not all the figures, that the hood is super glued onto the top of his head, so there's no way you can do that. You can't really, it's not meant to be removed, I suppose, but it is a separate piece, which will allow for better dexterity of this head joint or the neck joint. Speaking of articulation, the neck is on a ball joint that is on a hinge. There is a ball jointed upper torso. There's got the figure has butterfly hinge joints right here for the shoulders. The shoulders can also go in and out, forward and backward, bicep swivel, double jointed elbows, a little bit hindered because of how the sculpt of the tunic is, or sleeve. The hands, they swivel. The right gripping hand goes up and down, and this one goes in and out. Both grabbing hands go, I guess, in and out. There is a ab crunch, or a waist crunch, I should say. If you look inside underneath the tunic, there is a way to allow the upper torso to bend as well as rotate on that ball joint. So it's great articulation. What sucks is the way this tunic has been sculpted. The lower part of the gi, it's made of this, it's soft PVC, but it's much harder than usual, and it really hinders that ab crunch from doing a lot of movement. It kind of sucks. And I kind of wish they would have just put the ab crunch here and then a waist swivel down there, but that would have broken the sculpt entirely of the uniform or the costume, the Japanese gi, I suppose. And I guess this was the better call. It just, you know, I just hoped they'd put a little bit more clearance right here so that the upper torso can move backward and forwards a little bit better than what you're seeing right now. Okay, the hips are on ball joints. Again, hindered just by a little bit by the lower part of the tunic, by this material. It's not super hindered. You can still get him in decent poses, but it will put a strain on leg motion or leg movement, and despite having a slit right there. It's got a thigh swivel, very tight. Double jointed knees, as you can clearly see. It's got a calf swivel, which is very cool for stability of the poses. The foot is on a hinge, goes up and down, and you've got a rocker tilt or rocker pivot. And for some size comparisons, here is the Hand Ninja. With some Marvel figures, you see the basic male body of Scott Summers, which is often used in a lot of Marvel Legends figures. Scales nicely, it's about the same height. Over Wolverine, great scale with the Logan figure, and he stands a little bit taller than the Snake Eyes figure, about ½ centimeter taller than a G.I. Joe classified series figure like Snake Eyes. And so some final thoughts on this figure. Need I say more? I think this is the best army building figure that Hasbro's ever come up with since Hydra, the Hydra Soldier, the AIM Soldier, Jamie Madrox. I mean, I think this one takes the cake. I absolutely love this figure. I have a few minor complaints. Needless to say, I think it's still a perfect figure. I'm going to give the figure a 10 out of 10. I'm planning to get the Elektra figure once again, so I can pose her with these hand ninjas. If I do so, I will do a separate video on that. I do apologize for not including the comic series, a comic version of Elektra in this video, because I simply just didn't have that figure anymore. I didn't think I was going to need it after I reviewed it. Best of luck to everybody hunting this figure down. It is 1 per case for the Stiltman Build-A-Figure wave. I wish they had put more than 1 in the case, but knowing Hasbro, just like what they did with the AIM Soldier and the Hydra Soldier, they will probably release an army building version of this figure that's like cheaper than a normal Marvel Legends figure in that opaque box. I'm almost 100% sure they are going to do that. Let me know in the comment section what you think of this figure. Hit that notification bell so you never miss out on any of my latest video reviews. If it's your first time here, please subscribe. And if you want to help the channel out, please check out my Patreon account. There's a link in the description box below. Thanks for watching. The figure also comes with some weapons and accessories.